Hey friends, I am Jackson. Welcome back to Jackson, English Stories. If this is your first time, I am truly glad you are here. And if you have been learning with me for a while, thank you, really. You are the reason I keep showing up week after week. Now, let me ask you something. Where are you right now? Are you walking down a noisy street, earbuds in, half listening, or maybe curled up in bed? One hand holding your phone, the other holding your doubts? Is it morning for you? Or one of those quiet, endless nights? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Because when you write, this story becomes real, not just for me, but for all of us. And now, a harder question. Have you ever understood every single word someone said in English, but still felt disconnected? Like you got the meaning, but not the message. The sentence made sense. But it did not move you. It did not stay. It passed through your ears, but never touched your heart. That is what today's story is about, because understanding English and feeling it are not the same. And that space between understanding and feeling, I call it the empty fluency. It is the space where your grammar is perfect, but your voice is missing. You can follow a TED Talk. You can ace a test. You can impress a recruiter. But when someone you care about asks you, "Are you okay?" you freeze. You know the words. You know the rules. But the sentence does not carry you inside it. I remember a moment like that. Someone close to me asked, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I am okay." 2 words. Correct, simple, safe. But they were a lie. Because I was not okay. I was exhausted. Lost in questions I could not ask. Scared to admit I did not feel like myself. Not in my native language, and especially not in English. And the worst part? It was not that I lacked vocabulary. It was that I could not make English feel like me. You see, English is not just a system. It is not just verbs and prepositions and word order. It is a mirror. And if you do not bring yourself into it, the reflection is empty. It is like singing someone else's song. In a language you do not own yet, you hit the notes. But the melody is hollow. So many learners fall into that trap. They memorize. They translate. They perform. But they forget to feel. Because no one teaches you how to do that. No one tells you that fluency without feeling is just noise. I call it the illusion of fluency. You say the right words, but the words do not know who you are. And here is the painful truth. You can be fluent and still feel voiceless. Because fluency is not just about speaking. It is about saying something that is real. So let me ask you, have you ever said something in English that was technically perfect, but emotionally empty? Maybe I am fine. Maybe thank you for your time. Maybe it is okay. And deep down, it was not. If you remember a sentence like that, write it in the comments, the one that felt wrong, even though it was right, because that is where your real English begins. Not in the rules, but in the resistance, in the moment you say, "This is not me, not yet." And from there, you build. You learn to bring your sadness, your hope, your awkwardness, your truth. Because English, at its best, is not perfect. It is personal. And in the next part, we are going to explore one of the biggest lies in language learning. Think in English. Everyone says it. But maybe it is not what you need. I will show you why. Next. Think in English. It sounds like the final destination, the crown jewel of fluency. Every language coach praises it. Every YouTube title throws it at you like some golden advice, and every learner dreams of reaching that place. But have you ever asked yourself, what does it even mean? And more importantly, what if that idea is not just confusing, but misleading? Let me be real with you. I tried to think in English for years. I really did. I followed the advice. I whispered sentences in my mind, described everything I saw, everything I did. This is a chair. I am walking to the bus stop. There is a bird on the tree. It felt productive, at first, but slowly, something strange began to happen. I stopped believing my own voice. The words came out, but they felt like lines in a script, not thoughts, not feelings. It was like I was playing a character, in a language I could pronounce, but could not live in. And that is when it hit me. You cannot force your brain to think in a language it does not feel safe in, because real thinking, the kind that matters, is not mechanical, it is emotional. And emotions do not obey grammar. Let me say that again. Emotions do not obey grammar. They show up unannounced. They burst out without permission, and they speak the language your soul is most familiar with. So when you try to think in English, but your core emotions are still wired in your native language, you create a split. What psychologists call cognitive dissonance. It is like trying to play jazz while reading sheet music written for Mozart. You hit the notes. But the rhythm, it does not feel right. The mind says, speak in English, but the heart whispers in your mother tongue, and the heart always wins. That is why so many learners feel stuck. They understand English, they can translate fast, they even speak fluently in class or on camera. But when they are sad, angry, in love, their mind goes home, and home is not English yet. Translation, no matter how fast, is still a layer. And that layer creates distance between the feeling and the word, between the moment and your voice. So if you want to truly live in English, you have to do something deeper than think in English. You have to feel in English. But how? Not by repeating tourist phrases, not by labeling objects, not by pretending your thoughts are English when your emotions say otherwise. You start by noticing, what language do you cry in? What language do you imagine love in? What language do you hear when your inner critic speaks? Because whatever that language is, that is your emotional home. And thinking in English, real thinking, can only happen when English becomes part of that home. It does not happen by force. It happens by connection. And in the next part, I will show you how I found that connection. It was not through grammar, not through drills or flashcards. It was through a sentence, one short sentence, that changed everything. And no, it was not perfect. But it was honest, and that made all the difference. You are not speaking badly. You are just not speaking from your gut. That is the real problem, not grammar. Not vocabulary, not your accent. It is emotional disconnection. Let me explain what that really means. Have you ever listened to someone speak English, and everything sounded fine? The grammar was solid. The pronunciation was clear, but something in their voice felt hollow, like their words reached your ears, but never touched your heart. Now flip it. Have you ever spoken English yourself and felt like you were just performing, not expressing, not revealing anything real, just saying the right thing at the right time? That, right there, is emotional disconnection. It is not about the language being wrong. It is about the feeling being missing. It is when your words know what to say, but your soul has no idea why it is saying them. And for so many of us, especially those of us who learned English in classrooms, with textbooks and drills, that is where we end up living, in the space between correctness and connection. I lived in that space for years. People complimented my English. They told me I was so fluent. Teachers smiled. Interviewers nodded. But deep down, I felt like an actor reading someone else's lines. I could say, I am fine, when I was breaking. I could say, I understand, when I did not. I could say thank you, and feel absolutely nothing. It was not that the words were wrong, they were just empty. Here is a truth I wish someone had told me earlier. Emotion is not decoration. It is the electricity of language. Without it, your sentences might light up a grammar test, but they will never light up a heart. You can memorize 1,000 expressions. You can shadow native speakers. You can pronounce every syllable perfectly. But if you say, "I miss you," and feel nothing, then your sentence is technically alive, but emotionally dead. I remember one night, sitting beside someone I cared about. They were crying, and I wanted to comfort them. In English, all I could say was, "It is going to be okay." But my voice betrayed me. I meant it. Truly. But it came out cold, flat, like I was reading it off a script. And in that moment, I felt the most intense kind of failure, not because my sentence was wrong, but because my sentence was soulless. My grammar was speaking, but my heart was silent. And that silence, it broke me, so I made myself a promise. If I was going to speak English, I would not just speak it correctly, I would speak it truthfully. That meant I had to learn something no teacher had ever taught me: how to reconnect emotion to my English. To feel first, then speak, to let the sentence begin inside me, not just inside my brain. So let me ask you something real. What is one sentence in English that you want to say, but have no idea how to make it feel real? Write it in the comments. It could be, "I forgive you." It could be, "I miss her." It could be, "I do not know who I am anymore." No judgment. No correction, just truth. Because truth is where fluency begins. And in the next part, I will tell you the story of my silent years. Years when I knew all the rules, but could not say a single real thing. And maybe, just maybe, you will see yourself in that silence too. I want to take you back, not to a classroom, not to an exam hall, but to a quieter place, a place inside me, where every grammar rule I had mastered fell completely silent. It was my second year living abroad. I had passed all the tests. IELTS. Nailed it. TOEFL, high score. Every checklist said, "You are ready." And people told me, with smiling faces, "Your English is amazing." But the truth, I barely spoke. Not because I was shy, not because I did not have something to say, but because every sentence felt like a performance. Like I was auditioning for fluency. Have you ever felt that? Like your mouth was moving, but your soul stayed silent. That was my silent season. I sat in rooms full of conversation. I laughed when others laughed. Nodded at the right moments, smiled politely, but inside, I was bursting with questions, with observations. With emotions I could not translate, not fully. I knew how to sound intelligent. I could write long essays about philosophy, psychology, ethics. But I could not say, "I feel lonely tonight," and that destroyed me. Because part of me knew the language, but another part, the part that actually needed to speak, did not trust it yet. It was like living with two voices, one that knew how to impress, and one that just wanted to be heard, without pretending. But the second voice, it was terrified of sounding too raw, too clumsy, too honest. You know what is ironic? The more I learned, the less I spoke, because knowledge, as powerful as it is, also comes with pressure. The pressure to sound perfect, to be admired, to never stumble. But real communication, it is not a performance, it is presence. And I was not present in my own English. I was hiding behind it, like a well-written mask. There is a phrase I once read, and it haunted me. You are fluent, but you are not free. That was me, fluent on paper, frozen in real life. And it hit me one day, like a quiet truth I could no longer ignore. I was fluent, but I had no voice, because voice is not just language, it is risk. It is vulnerability. It is truth. And truth does not care if your verb tense is perfect. It just wants to be felt. So here is my question for you. Have you ever held back a sentence, not because you did not know how to say it, but because you were afraid you would say it wrong? What is one thing you stopped yourself from expressing because you feared it would sound silly, childish, or broken? Write it in the comments, and know this: that sentence, the one you swallowed, might be the most honest sentence you ever had. And in the next part, I want to challenge something I believed for a long, long time. The belief that grammar is the foundation of fluency. I used to think that, until I learned the hard way, that grammar confidence does not equal speaking freedom. Let me show you why. Next, I used to believe grammar was the key. Like so many learners, I told myself, if I just master the rules, I will finally be free. So I went all in. I studied relentlessly. Tenses, conditionals, passive voice. Reported speech. I dissected every nuance. I could explain the difference between the past perfect and the past perfect continuous like it was poetry. I corrected classmates. I even corrected teachers sometimes, and I felt smart, controlled, prepared. But then, life happened. Moments where grammar meant nothing. Let me tell you about one. A few years ago, a close friend of mine lost someone they loved. They invited me to meet for coffee. No words, just silence, their hands trembling slightly, their eyes filled with unspoken grief. And I sat there, frozen. Not because I did not know what to say, but because everything I could say felt wrong. Still, I tried. I took a deep breath, opened my mouth, and said, "I am sorry for your loss. I hope you can find some peace." Textbook perfect. And yet, something in the air went colder. Because what they needed was not structure. They needed a soul. They needed someone to sit beside them, not above them, to feel the silence, not fill it with perfect phrases. And I had the grammar, but not the gravity. That moment stayed with me, not because I said the wrong thing, but because I said the empty thing. And that changed everything for me, because I realized something grammar books never told me. Fluency is not the art of speaking correctly. It is the courage to speak honestly, even when your voice shakes, even when the words are imperfect, even when all you can say is, "This hurts, I am here." You see, grammar is not the enemy, but when it becomes a shield, it blocks your heart. The danger of grammar confidence is this: it makes you chase applause. Instead of connection, you start speaking to impress, not to express. You start performing English, not living in it. And ironically, the more perfect you sound, the less human you feel. I am not saying grammar does not matter. Of course it does, but only as a tool. Not a test, not a cage, because people do not remember perfect sentences. They remember how you made them feel. They remember your eyes, your pause, your presence. So let me ask you, from one learner to another, have you ever stayed silent, even when you had the words, not because you did not know what to say, but because you thought your grammar was not good enough? If yes, write it. Just one sentence. One moment you bit your tongue because fear was louder than feeling. Put it in the comments. That moment matters, because in the next part, I will share with you a sentence. A sentence so simple and so true that it shattered years of fear inside me. It rewired the way I think, the way I speak, the way I feel in English. You are going to want to hear it. I remember it so clearly. The room was small, quiet. Just 4 students, a whiteboard, and a teacher from New Zealand. We were doing role plays, the kind you usually rush through, ordering food, asking for directions. Nothing deep, and there I was, doing what I always did, rehearsing the line in my head, analyzing each word before I spoke, double-checking verb tenses, scanning my brain for the right preposition. My mouth was still, but my mind, it was on fire. Then something unexpected happened. The teacher paused. He looked straight at me, his eyes kind but unshaking. And he said just 3 words. Do not think, feel. That was it. 3 words. But they hit like thunder, like someone cracked open the ceiling of my language world and let the light in. Because in that moment, I understood. I had been thinking in English, but I had never once felt in English. I was fluent in theory, but disconnected in reality. It was not about not knowing what to say. It was about not trusting what I felt. So I started watching myself more closely, and I saw it. Every time I tried to speak, I filtered everything through fear, fear of being wrong, fear of sounding foolish, fear of messing up a sentence I had rehearsed 100 times. And that fear, as subtle as it was, had built a wall. Not around my vocabulary, around my voice. So I tried something new. I stopped trying to say it right. I tried to say it real. Before I spoke, I would ask, what am I actually feeling right now? And then I let that feeling guide the words, not the rules, not the grammar books, not the little voice in my head whispering, say it better. Just the truth. At first it was messy. I mixed tenses. I repeated myself. I paused mid-sentence like I had forgotten how to think. But strangely, I had never felt more connected, because for the first time, my English was not a performance. It was a presence. It was not perfect, but it was mine. It came from a real place, not a textbook page. And here is what surprised me most. People listened more, not because my sentences were complex, but because my voice was finally in them. I was not speaking English like a second language. I was speaking like a second soul. So let me ask you something real. Have you ever said something in English and actually felt it in your chest? Not just recited it, not just constructed it, but felt it. Deep, honest, unfiltered. If not, maybe that is your next step, not thinking more, but feeling deeper. Tonight, try this. Say just 1 sentence in English about something that matters to you, something personal. Something raw. Do not rehearse. Do not correct. Do not aim for elegance. Just feel it, and let the words find you. Then come back here. Tell me what that sentence was. Write it in the comments. Let it live, because in the next part, we are going to take down one of the oldest myths in language learning. The idea that language is just a system. Something to decode, memorize, master. But language is not a system. It is a story. And that story begins with you. Let me tell you something strange. Language is not what most people think it is. It is not just a tool. Not just a system of rules and translations, and it is definitely not a puzzle waiting to be solved. It is a memory device, a bridge between your inner world and the world outside. You see, we treat English like math. Like a code, like if we get the equation right, we will be fluent. Subject plus verb plus object equal conversation. But language was never meant to be solved. It was meant to be felt. Because every word, when it lives, carries not just meaning, but memory, emotion, time, sensation. When I say the word home, I do not picture a dictionary. I see my grandmother's kitchen. I smell warm rice, soy sauce, something sweet boiling on the stove. I hear her voice humming a song I have never found on Google. That one word, home, carries more than a definition. It carries me. And that is how language truly works, not as lines in a textbook, but as containers of lived experience. You want to learn the word freedom? Then do not start with a translation. Start with that moment you walked out of a room and realized, for the first time, that no one was coming to stop you. That moment was the definition You want to remember the word rain? Feel again how it soaked your shoes on a Tuesday morning, how your coat stuck to your arms, how you looked up at the clouds and felt small. Real memory makes the word unforgettable. That is why most learners forget vocabulary so quickly, because they try to learn it empty. They copy it into a notebook, repeat it 10 times, test it with flashcards. But nothing sticks. Why? Because there is no anchor. No story, no image, no emotion. Just a label, floating without weight. Let me tell you what changed everything for me. I once taught the word regret. I could have said, it means feeling bad about something in the past. And yes, technically that is true. But instead, I told a story about a phone call I never made to someone I loved who passed away the next week. And in that room, no one asked me to repeat the definition. They felt it in their breath, in their silence. Because in that moment, they lived the word. And that is the real meaning of fluency. Not speaking perfectly, but speaking from memory, from lived truth. So here is your challenge, and I want you to take it seriously. Pick one English word today. Just one, but instead of writing the meaning, write the memory. What does that word taste like? What image comes up when you close your eyes? What story does it hold? Even if it is messy, even if it is small. Because when you attach memory to a word, you will never forget it again. And neither will the person listening. Leave that word in the comments and tell me the moment it connects to. No grammar check, no pressure, just honesty. Because in the next part, we are going to explore a technique almost every learner has heard of, shadowing. But we will not treat it like a machine exercise, because when you repeat without emotion, it is not communication. It is just echo, and you are not an echo. Let me show you how to bring your English to life. Shadowing. You have probably heard the word before. And if you have been learning English for a while, someone has likely told you, shadow native speakers, just copy what they say. It sounds simple, and in many ways, it is. You listen to a sentence, you repeat it, same intonation, same rhythm, same pauses, and yes, it works. It trains your ear, it trains your mouth, it builds muscle memory faster than most techniques. But here is the part no one tells you. Shadowing can make you sound fluent while feeling nothing. I know, because I have been there. I shadowed movie scenes, TED Talks, angry speeches, emotional confessions, even love letters. I mimicked them all. And my pronunciation? It got sharper. My pacing? More natural. But my voice? Still missing. Because here is the hidden trap. You start copying sound, but forget to connect with meaning. It is like watching someone cry and mimicking their face without knowing what they are crying about. You can match their tears, but you will never match their truth. And when you repeat that over time, you become fluent in emotionless English. You say the words right. But they do not belong to you. You deliver the tone, but it is not your tone. And at some point, if you are honest, you will feel it. That strange emptiness, like you are performing a role, not expressing a life. I remember standing in front of a mirror, repeating lines from a film. The actor sounded heartbroken, and I copied every inflection, every whisper. But halfway through, I stopped. I looked at my reflection and asked, do I even know what this line means to me? Because the words were right, but they were not mine. So here is what I learned. Shadowing only becomes real when you bring yourself into the sentence. You cannot just repeat the line. You must enter it. Feel it, own it, shape it with your story. Here is a simple way to practice that. Step 1. Take a line from a movie or podcast. Let us say, I am sorry, I did not mean to hurt you. Step 2. Repeat it exactly like the speaker. Match their tone, their speed, their breath. Then, pause and say it again, but this time, imagine you are the one who caused pain. Say it as if you are speaking to someone you truly hurt, not performing, apologizing. Do you feel the difference? The second time, your chest tightens, your breath shortens. Your voice softens. That second version, that is not shadowing. That is transformation. Because now, the sentence lives in your body. It is not just borrowed sound. It is embedded experience. That is the shift. Shadowing is not about speed. It is about sincerity. So next time you practice shadowing, slow it down. Do not rush to match the speaker. Take the sentence in. Ask yourself, if I had to live this line, what would it sound like in my mouth? Then say it again. Breathe with it. Feel the silence between the words. Let the line become yours, even if it is messy. Because that is how fluency grows, not by repetition alone, but by emotional recreation. And in the next part, we are going to explore the ones who do this better than anyone. Children. Little humans who do not memorize grammar, do not shadow CNN interviews, but somehow speak fluently. With presence, with feeling, with truth. Let us find out how. Next. Have you ever watched a child learn a language? Not study it. Not sit at a desk, not underline verbs or recite grammar rules, just live it. They do not memorize charts. They do not ask. Is this the present perfect continuous? They feel. They move. They absorb. Children do not learn language through logic. They learn it through sensation. Their bodies lead the way, not their brains. They touch. They laugh. They cry. They scream. They mimic the world with every sense wide open. And somehow, as if by magic, they speak. Not stiffly, but with rhythm, with tone, with emotion. So what is their secret? They do not learn about language. They live inside it. Let me show you what I mean. When a child learns the word apple, they are not staring at a dictionary. They are holding it. It is cold in their hands. They bite into it. Juice drips down their chin. They giggle. They chew. They learn. Their brain connects sound with sensation. This round red thing. This crunch. This sweetness. Apple. Not a red fruit, singular countable noun, but a memory, a taste, a tiny joy. That is real language learning. Now contrast that with how adults often learn the same word. Apple. Noun. A fruit. Translate as manzana, pomme, guatao. No smell, no taste. No color, no memory, just black text on a white screen. So it stays abstract. You can spell it, but can you feel it? That is the gap. Children learn language into their bodies. We learn language into our heads. But it does not have to stay that way. You can relearn words through sensation. You can rebuild vocabulary through personal memory. Try this. Pick a word you already know. Let us say, rain. Now pause. Do not just say the word, feel it. What does rain mean to you? Close your eyes. Was there a moment you were caught in it? Were your clothes soaked? Was it cold? Were you laughing or alone? Was someone running beside you? Now, open your eyes. Say the word again. Rain. Do you hear it differently now? That shift? That little tug in your chest? That is language being rewired through memory. That is how children do it, and we, as adults, can do it too. Because fluency is not just about speaking quickly. It is about speaking from somewhere real. Children do not think in English. They experience in context. They associate sound with life. Not with flashcards, not with exams, not with anxiety. With moments. So if you want to sound more natural, stop chasing vocabulary lists. Start chasing moments. Because every word is waiting to be remembered. through you. Here is a question for you. What is one English word you already know, but that holds a powerful memory? Maybe ocean, maybe fire, maybe goodbye. Leave that word in the comments. And tell the story behind it, even if it is short, even if it is messy, because in the next part, we are going to talk about what happens when your emotions take over and English suddenly disappears. It happened to me. And it shattered what I thought fluency really meant. Let me show you what I learned. Next, I remember it like it just happened. Not because it was loud, not because it was dramatic, but because of what I could not say. It was a gray afternoon, the kind of day where the rain seems to fall slowly, like the world is asking you to pause. I was inside, wrapped in a blanket. But my heart was not still, because across from me was someone I cared about. Their voice was soft. Their eyes, a little red. They had just told me something personal, something painful. Something they had never said aloud before, and I listened, every word. Not just with my ears, but with my whole body. I understood them, every sentence. Every pause, every breath between the tears. And when it was my turn to speak, I froze. Not because I did not know the words, but because I could not trust them to carry what I felt. I am here for you. I understand. I care. I wanted to say those things. But they felt like lines from a script, not truth from my chest. And so I said nothing. Silence. Have you ever had that kind of moment? When your heart is full, but your mouth forgets how to move. When the sentence is there, but it feels like it belongs to someone else. It is like standing behind a glass wall, watching your own life happen, without you in it. That moment shattered something in me, because I realized I had studied English for years. Passed tests, written essays, memorized idioms. But I had never trained myself to speak from pain. I had learned how to describe a room, how to give directions, how to order coffee like a native, but not how to say, I feel like I am unraveling, or I am scared I will never feel normal again, or even the simplest, most human sentence, I am not okay, and no one tells you that. No textbook prepares you for that moment. No app trains your voice to carry your wounds. So there I was, sitting beside someone I loved, wanting to comfort them. And all I had was silence. It was not English that failed me, it was how I had learned it. I had built a fortress of grammar, but never opened the door to emotion. And that silence, it stayed with me, because in that pause, that long, aching pause, I saw something deeper. Most learners are not voiceless because they lack vocabulary. They are voiceless because they have never been taught to speak from the gut. To speak from grief, from joy, from doubt. They know the rules, but not the release. So let me ask you, has English ever abandoned you in a moment that mattered? Not in class, not in a test, but in real life. In the kind of moment where someone needed you, and all you could give was a silence you did not choose. If that has ever happened to you, write it. One line. One memory, put it in the comments, because when you share that, you begin to reclaim it. You begin to rebuild your voice, not just with words, but with truth. And in the next part, I will share the method that saved me. It was not in a grammar book, it was not in a classroom, but it taught me how to let my heart speak in English. And maybe it can do the same for you. Let me tell you something unexpected. The more I studied English, the harder it became to speak honestly. I knew more words, more phrases, more polished expressions. But somehow, my voice got quieter. I could write a perfect paragraph, but I could not say I miss you in a way that felt like I meant it. I sounded fluent, but I felt fake, So one day, I stopped. No more flashcards, no more grammar drills, no more forcing myself to describe the window, the chair, or the imaginary apple that never felt like mine. I sat on the floor, cross-legged, still, and I asked myself, not in English, not in any language, just as a human being, what am I feeling right now? I waited. At first, nothing came, just breath. Silence, a soft ache behind my ribs. Then slowly, something surfaced. Sadness, confusion, a heaviness in the chest. You know that feeling when nothing is technically wrong, but everything feels slightly off? That was it. So I gave it shape, not a sentence, just a color. A sound, a shadow, and then I whispered a word. Tired. Not tired like I need sleep, but tired like I am done pretending. And in that moment, I said a real sentence in English, for the first time in weeks, maybe months. I feel tired of pretending. It was not grammatically complex, it was not elegant, but it was real. And that made it powerful. That day, I stumbled into something I now call the reverse fluency method. Most people learn like this: word, sentence, feeling. But that path is backwards. If you want emotional fluency, you have to flip the process: feeling, image, word. Here is how it works. Step 1. Feel. Sit. Close your eyes. Do not search for grammar. Search for sensation. What are you carrying right now? Is it pressure? Is it regret? Is it hope? Step 2. Image. What does that feeling look like? A locked door? A burning house? A child waiting alone in the rain? Step 3. Word. Now, find English to match that image, even if it is messy. Even if it is raw. Because truth always sounds like that at first. So instead of, I want to say something impressive, you end up with, I feel like no one hears me. That is voice. Not vocabulary, because you are not speaking to impress, you are speaking to connect. Here is something simple you can try tonight. Before bed, sit still for just 1 minute. Breathe. Feel. Ask yourself, what is one thing I truly feel, but have never said out loud? Then, say it. In English, aloud. It might sound like, I am afraid I am not enough, or, I want someone to understand me, without me having to explain. Then pause. Let it echo inside you. Because that is not practice, that is presence. That is where fluency begins, not in the mouth, but in the chest. So let me ask you, now, what is one real sentence that you have never dared to say in English? Write it in the comments. Start with, right now, I feel, and let it be yours, even if it shakes, even if it breaks the rules. Because once you can name your truth, you stop using English as a mask and start using it as a mirror. And in the next part, I want to show you a strange tool. It was not a textbook, not a grammar website. It was a mirror. Literal and emotional. And it changed how I saw myself in English. Let me explain. Next, I used to hate hearing my own voice. The moment I hit playback, cringe. Delete. Gone. It sounded awkward. Unnatural, like someone was pretending to be me and doing a bad job. Maybe you know that feeling. But then, something shifted. One night I was trying to record a story, nothing dramatic. Just a little moment, getting lost in a new city, trying to ask for directions. I told the story out loud, to no one. Just my phone, and when I listened back, I heard something unexpected, not grammar. Not pronunciation. I heard myself, not the version I polished for teachers. Not the version that wanted to sound fluent, but the version that was nervous, rushed, afraid to pause. And right there, in that shaky voice, I realized something important. Your voice is not just how you sound, it is how you feel. Recording yourself is not about tracking progress. It is about holding up a mirror that does not show your face, but your emotional rhythm. Because when you listen, you hear things grammar never teaches. You hear the tension in your throat when you say, "I am fine." You hear the forced laugh that hides discomfort. You hear the silence after a sentence you do not believe. And at first, it is uncomfortable, painfully honest, but that discomfort, that is not a problem, that is clarity. That is the part of you that wants to speak and finally gets heard. So I started doing something simple. Every night, and for 1 minute, I recorded myself. Just one sentence. One thought, one emotion from the day. No script. No correction, just presence. Some days it sounded like today was heavy. I carried too many invisible things. Other days, I felt proud. I handled something hard, and I did not hide. And sometimes, just silence. Then a whisper. I do not know what I feel today. And even that was fluency. Because fluency is not about always knowing what to say. It is about having the courage to say something real, even when it is incomplete. Over time, those recordings became something more. A journal, a mirror. A voice I started to recognize as mine. I noticed patterns. When I was nervous, I rushed. When I was unsure, I filled the space with filler words. But when I was honest, I paused, I breathed, and suddenly, my English sounded more me. Not native, not perfect, but present. Because speaking is not just output, it is a loop. Between your thoughts, your body, and your heart. So here is my challenge for you. Tonight, take out your phone. Open your voice memo app and say one honest sentence, something you really feel. It could be, I'm tired of pretending everything is okay, or I feel excited about something, but I am scared to jinx it. Then, listen back, not to fix, not to criticize. Just to hear. What does your voice sound like when it is not performing? Do you speak fast when nervous? Do you whisper when sad? Do you pause more when you feel safe? That is the lesson no textbook teaches. Because real fluency is not just knowing English, it is knowing yourself in English. So tell me, in the comments, tonight? I said, write one line from your voice to this space. Because in the next part, I want to talk about something difficult, a moment where I spoke honestly and was misunderstood, and how that experience taught me the difference between truth and clarity. Let us go there, together, next. I once believed that honesty was the key. If I could just articulate my feelings, clearly, openly, sincerely, people would understand me. Right? But one evening shattered that belief. It was a late-night conversation. I was exhausted, emotional, speaking in English, my second language. Someone close to me asked a tough question. What are you really thinking? I answered honestly. Every raw thought, no filters. I said something like, I don't know if I trust this moment. It feels shaky, not fake, but fragile. What I meant was, I'm trying to stay, but I feel uncertain. But what they heard was, you're fake. I don't trust you. Silence. They became defensive. I was confused. The night unraveled. That's when I learned a hard truth. Honesty isn't always clarity. And deep feelings don't guarantee understanding. When we speak from the heart, especially in a second language, we assume our emotions will convey the meaning. But if the listener doesn't share our emotional language, the message can get lost. It's like singing a heartfelt song in a key they can't hear. That night, I was vulnerable, but I lacked the precision to ensure that vulnerability was received as intended. Because words matter, Not just what you say, but how you say it, the verbs, the tone, the rhythm. Emotional fluency isn't just about being honest. It's about translating your truth into something the other person can grasp. And that requires skill, patience, and, often, mistakes. So, if you've ever spoken your truth and felt hurt because it was misunderstood, know this: your emotions weren't wrong. Your expression just needed more tools. Fluency isn't just speed. It's not just vocabulary, it's also empathy, the ability to anticipate how your words will land, to adjust, to clarify, to say, "Let me try again, this is what I mean." Now, I practice a different kind of honesty, not the kind that just spills out, but the kind that listens while speaking. That seeks connection, not just correctness. So let me ask you, have you ever said something honest, in English, and felt hurt because it was misunderstood? Share it in the comments. Just a line, a moment, we'll read it and maybe, finally, hear you right. Because in the next part, we'll discuss that stuck feeling, the plateau, when it seems like your English has stopped progressing, even though you're still trying. And I'll show you, it's not a skill issue, it's a fear loop. Let's break it together. You think you're stuck because your English isn't good enough, but that's not it. You're stuck because you're afraid. And that fear, it's quiet. It wears different disguises. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism. Sometimes like procrastination, sometimes like silence. But at the center of it all, it's fear. Let me break this down. You try to speak. You get nervous, you hold back, you feel bad for holding back. So next time, you hesitate even more. That's the loop. Fear, silence, guilt, more fear. I know this loop too well. I lived in it for years. And the worst part, it feels like you're doing something wrong, when, in fact, your brain is just trying to protect you. Because speaking a language is not neutral. It's vulnerable, it's exposure, it's saying, "Here I am." Unfiltered, imperfect, real. That's terrifying. Especially if you've ever been judged, corrected too harshly, laughed at, ignored. The brain remembers. So even when you can speak, your body whispers. Stay safe, stay quiet, and you listen. Not because you're lazy. Not because you're untalented, but because you're human. Here's what I want to tell you. Fluency is not just a language journey. It's a courage journey. You don't grow out of fear by fighting it. You grow beyond it by stepping with it. One sentence at a time. That's how I broke the loop. I started saying one true thing every day, in English, even if it was small, even if it was messy. I am tired today. I miss my mom. I feel invisible. Just one honest line. And slowly, the silence cracked, my voice returned, and so did my confidence. So here's what I want from you today. Take 1 minute, write one true sentence in English in the comments. No filters, no corrections, just you. As you are, that one act, it's a beginning. And in the next part, I want to show you what happens when fluency becomes something more than just skill, when it becomes storytelling. When you stop being a student and start becoming the voice of your own life. Let's go there. You didn't come this far just to memorize verbs. You came here to say something that matters. And maybe that sounds too big, too dramatic, but stay with me. At some point, every language learner faces a question. What is all this for? Why the endless hours with grammar books? Why the stress of listening tests? Why the awkward conversations? It can't be just about passing exams, or ordering food, or landing a better job. Those are valid reasons, but they're not the reasons you stay. People stay when they find a voice. Let me share a secret. Fluency isn't about sounding perfect, it's about becoming real in another language. And the most authentic thing you can do in English is tell your story. Not a flawless story, not a rehearsed one, but a true one, the way you lived it, the way you felt it. Even if your words are simple, even if your grammar slips, even if you pause to breathe. When the story is honest, people listen, because stories connect us. They say, "You're not alone." They say, "Me too." That's what English is really for, not to impress, but to express, to share what broke you, to share what made you laugh until you cried. To say, "This is who I am, and this is how I got here." Let me ask you something. If I gave you 1 minute to speak to the world in English, what would you say? Would you talk about love? Loss? Dreams that never came true, or dreams that surprised you? Would you say what no one ever let you say in your own language? That is your story, and English can hold it, even if you're still learning. So today, I invite you to do one thing. Write a short comment, one paragraph in English, not a practice sentence, not a grammar drill. Just tell me one memory, one feeling, one truth. You don't need perfect words, you just need your words, because the moment you speak your truth, you stop being a learner. And you start becoming a storyteller. In the next part, we're going to talk about something that holds a lot of learners back. This idea that your English needs to be flawless before it's enough. Spoiler, it's already enough. But I'll show you why, next. I used to live by one rule. If it was not perfect, I would not speak. I convinced myself, if I make a mistake, they will laugh. If I pause, they will leave. If I do not sound fluent, I do not belong. So I waited. I rehearsed in silence. I practiced alone, and I waited for perfect, but perfect never showed up. Every day I waited, I drifted further from my voice, because here is the thing nobody tells you. Perfection is not a goal. It is a trap. It keeps moving. It keeps shifting. It keeps whispering, "Not yet." But one day, I stopped listening, because I realized something that changed everything. Good enough is not failure. It is freedom. Think about it. When someone tells you, "I miss you," do you correct their grammar? When a friend struggles to say thank you, do you care about their pronunciation? Of course not. You hear the heart, and the heart is enough. So why do we treat ourselves differently? Why do we silence our voice in the name of some imaginary perfection? Why do we wait and wait until we sound like someone else, instead of sounding like ourselves? Let me tell you what the world really needs. Not perfect English, but real voices, brave voices, imperfect, trembling, honest voices. People who say, "I do not have all the words, but I have something to say. I am still learning, but I am ready to connect. I feel this, and I want you to feel it too." That kind of English, that changes lives. And here is the irony. When you stop chasing perfect, you speak better. Because now, you are present, you are breathing, you are connected. Your English becomes a mirror, not a mask. So let me ask you, what is one thing you have been hiding, just because you thought your English was not ready? Say it anyway. Type it in the comments, even if it shakes, even if it slips. Because good enough is not the end. It is the beginning. And in the next part, we are going deeper. We are moving English out of your brain and into your body. Yes, your body, because language is not just logic. It is rhythm, it is tension, it is touch. Let me show you how. Next, where do you feel your English? Let me ask you something unusual. When you speak English, where do you feel it? In your mouth, your head, your chest? For the longest time, I felt it only in my head. Words would spin in circles, checking grammar, fixing order, choosing tenses. But nothing lived in my body, nothing flowed, nothing moved. It was like reading instructions for dancing, but never getting up. Until one day, something shifted. I was watching a play. A small one, just a local group. One of the actors stood still on stage. She didn't say a word. She just looked at another character, with eyes full of pain. And the audience, we felt it. No subtitles, no dictionary. Just breath, stillness, and one silent message. I'm hurting. And I thought, that is language too. That moment cracked something open. What if we've been learning English all wrong? What if the problem isn't vocabulary, but how disconnected we are from the physical experience of expression? Because language is not only words, it is tension, gesture, pace, tone. Your body knows how to speak even before your words arrive. Think about it. When you're nervous, do your hands shake? When you're excited, does your voice rise? That is language. That is fluency, without translation. So I started practicing differently. Before speaking, I would feel, what emotion am I holding right now? Where is it? In my chest, my throat, my stomach? Then I'd breathe into it. Let it grow, let it move, and only then let the words come. It was not perfect, it was not fast, but it was alive. I stopped trying to sound fluent and started trying to feel connected. Sometimes I would even act out what I wanted to say with just my face, my hands, my silence. And suddenly, English came easier, not because I studied more, but because I trusted my body to speak first. So here is a small challenge for you. Choose one emotion. Maybe sadness, maybe love, maybe hope. Now, without saying a word, express it. With your eyes, with your hands, with your breath. Then, find one sentence in English to match it. Not the most perfect sentence, just the most honest one. You'll be surprised how quickly your body helps you find the words. Leave that sentence in the comments. Let us feel what you feel. And next, in our final part, I have one simple sentence for you to say today. One sentence that could change how you use English forever. You've come a long way. You've listened, reflected, and perhaps even unlearned. Now, I have just one question for you. Can you say one sentence in English that is true, not perfect? Not rehearsed, just true. Right now in this moment. What is one thing you can say in English that comes from the deepest part of you? Because here's the truth. A broken sentence filled with honesty is more powerful than a flawless one filled with fear. So let's stop chasing perfection. Let's start embracing authenticity. You don't need more idioms. You don't need another grammar lesson. You need a sentence. One sentence that reflects your real self. Perhaps it's, I am tired, or I feel alone, or even, I don't know what to say, but I want to try. That's where fluency begins. Not on page 55, not in an exam, but in this moment, right here. So here's your invitation. Type one sentence in the comments. Just one. Start it with, right now I feel, say what's real, say what you've been holding. Because the moment you dare to say it is the moment you stop being a learner and start becoming a storyteller. And if no one's told you this before, let me be the first. Your English, the way you say it, feel it, live it, is already enough. You just have to speak it. Thank you for staying with me. And if this message resonated with you, not just in words, but in truth, share it with someone who needs that same permission. Because the world doesn't need more perfect English. It needs more honest voices, and yours might be exactly what someone else is waiting to hear.